Hi vinyl community, it's Mike here, back with another video. And today's video, I'll show you records that I picked up in the last 4 to 6 weeks. So I'll start off with some new records that I bought, and then I'll finish off with half a dozen or so records that I bought at Leeds Record Fair back in June. And it's quite a good bunch of records that I got from the record fair. I thought it was a particularly good one last month, so I'll come to that in a minute. But first of all, we'll start with the new records, and I couldn't resist getting these records. A pair of records by these guys, and it's there you go, Angine De Potrine, I should say. They're a duo from Quebec in Canada, and they've been making quite a splash on the vinyl community and elsewhere. And it all started because they appeared at a music festival in France, and their set was filmed by the radio station KEXP Seattle, and it was on YouTube, and people were watching it and they're thinking, what the hell is going on here? So, these guys, drums, and then the a custom-made microtonal bass and guitar combination there, and they wear these papier-mâché masks or whatever they are, and they wear polka dot clothes. They paint their hands and feet in polka dots as well. But I think they're really good. A lot of people have written them off as saying, well, they're just a novelty act. And yeah, they are a novelty act, because you wouldn't normally dress in this stuff, would you, with these papier-mâché masks? And they tell the world that they're aliens, and they are Angine De Potrine and Clec De Potrine. And during the course of their act, they communicate with each other in just sort of weird sort of sounds. So this stuff is all instrumental. As I say, it's drums and microtonal guitars, and the sound, I think, is absolutely fantastic. You wonder how you can get such sort of music out of a guitar, really, sometimes. And being microtonal, they've got the extra frets on both the guitar and the bass, so you get to sort of play the notes in between the notes, if that makes sense. And this is something that creates quite a sort of not so much a jarring effect on your ears, really, but it sounds quite unfamiliar, quite sort of strange, and I think you have to really get sort of tuned into the music. And it was used a lot in Middle Eastern music, that you get sort of microtonal rhythms. And King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, occasionally go into microtonal music, but they certainly look like a gimmick, don't they? This is these guys. Are they really serious? And yeah, I believe they are really serious. Their music, as I say, it's all instrumental. It's guitar music. It's pretty good stuff. People have described it as math rock, whatever that is, and I hate the word math, because being from the UK, that it's not math, it's maths, but it's a kind of instrumental sort of proggy sort of music. I mean, to me, they sound a little bit krautrocky, and a little bit sort of psychedelic. But these two records are really, I think they're really worth having. Here's volume 1, and there you can see the track listing on there. But what I would say is that I think they might struggle a little bit to sort of keep up the popularity, because I think they really probably need to sort of do something a little bit different for their next album, because both these albums sound very similar. I mean, it's great music, and I'm really pleased that I've got the records. I was looking forward to listening to them, and yeah, they didn't disappoint. So that's the first one. So it's Angine De Potrine, and they're two albums, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Now the next record, I was really pleased to get this, and it was a welcome reissue. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's a welcome reissue of an album from 1971, and it's from the great Master Wilburn Burchette, and this is his first album, Occult Concert, as you can say. And again, it's just sort of guitar music. It's a bit psyche. It's a bit sort of folky, and he's a really interesting character. And I didn't really know an awful lot about him, so I looked him up. Had a read about him, and he was somebody that during the 1970s he was on the fringes of the Californian counterculture, and he started off by releasing sort of new age. I don't know. Difficult to say. Sort of new age sort of pamphlets, and these were called his psychic meditation courses, and basically what they were, it was lessons in how to listen to music. And he sold them through, various sort of new age publications by mail order. And these albums as well, very much sort of cottage industry for him. And, he would design the covers of the albums himself. I think there were 7 in all that he did between about 1971 and 1977. And as I say, it's guitar music, a little bit folky, a little bit psyche. And it's really nice stuff, and I'd heard about him and I'd heard some stuff from him before, and I thought, I'd really like to get hold of something. So I was really pleased that this album's got a reissue. But it's not just music to listen to. It's more than that. This will change your life, because it says here, Impro's transcendental tone scale takes you into the frontiers of human experience. So that's it. By listening to this record, you'll be being taken into the frontiers of human experience. I mean, how about that? All for 20 quid. It can't be bad. And he also says, explore the unknown behind your conscious mind with the Impro guitar of Wilburn Burchette. And so you've got a lot of detail on the back, and a lot of it is sort of like how to listen to the music, or the initiation rites, as he puts it. So I'll just read you a little bit. He says, for the listener to receive full benefit, it is necessary to understand and carefully follow the initiation rites. Each impro piece has a key and experience. Meditate upon the key, this being the two contrasting states of the emotional tone scale. Thinking of all things in terms of this key, comprehend the experience by visualization, thinking of thyself as the centre of the experience, and it goes on, like that. So this is quite an undertaking. You can't just sort of take the record out of the sleeve and shove it on the turntable. You have to really get in the space here in order to really appreciate something that I don't think I've quite done yet. But it's a fantastic album. I really love this. Right, now again, over the last sort of month or so, there's been a lot of records that sort of people have been really looking forward to, and people have been looking forward to Paul McCartney's Dungeon Lane. Well, that's not really for me at all, quite honestly. There was an album by Morrissey that a lot of people talked about. And then an album I was really looking forward to. It was the first album by Boards of Canada for, I think it was something like 13 years. It might have been even longer than that. And, sad to say, I've been listening to it online. I've listened to it a lot, and it hasn't quite done it for me. And it's quite an expensive album. And I thought, do I really want to buy this record when I could be buying something else? And I was quite disappointed, really. Now, I know what will happen. I'll be listening to it online, again and again. And eventually I'll think, I really need to get this record, and it will probably end up in my collection at some time. But so far, it hasn't. But there's another record, and living in the UK, I've had to wait an extra 2 weeks to just about everyone else in the world, I think, because this record was only released in the UK last Friday, and I think it was released 2 weeks before that in Australia. It's an Australian band, absolutely brilliant band, from included possibly the greatest Australian contemporary musician of all time. And the band, of course, is Eddy Current Supression Ring. And as you can see, it's called In the Light of Recent Events. And I was thinking that probably there wouldn't be another Eddy Current album, that I thought they'd done. Again, it's quite a few years since the last one. And anyway, the members of Eddy Current Supression Ring are Daniel Young, who plays the drums, and he's known as Danny Current. That's his moniker for the band. And then the great Mikey Young. Mikey Young, who's involved in engineering and producing all sorts of records. He's been in all sorts of bands, but I think, as a member of Eddy Current Supression Ring, that's where he really comes to his fore. And Mikey Young, guitar and keyboards, and he is Eddy Current in the band. And then you've got Brendan Supression, real name Brendan Huntley, who is the vocals on this. And then you've got Brad Barry, who's called Rub Solid, and he's a bass player. And you know what, this album, it was worth the wait. I got it home. It came out last Friday. I went into a record shop on Monday and picked up my pre-ordered copy, and I played it 3, 4, 5, 6 times maybe already, and it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, it starts off, as soon as the needle went down on track 1, side 1, I knew that this was going to be a great record. Self-Sabotage is the is the first track on side 1. Then there's Bop, and I'll show you. I just show you instead of reading out the thing. There you go. That's the track listing, and it comes with a card in here that's got the got the lyrics on, and some of the lyrics are quite good. The second track on side 1 is called Bop, and the lyrics start off: I live alone at the end of the street. I memorise all the people I meet. I socialise with the dogs and cats. They think I'm cool, and they don't talk back. I get turned on by the birds and bees. I'm in the garden and I'm on my knees. And this is absolutely brilliant, post-punk. I couldn't recommend Eddy Current Supression Ring more highly. I mean, if you really, really want to, get into them, start with the debut album. The debut album is just absolutely brilliant, and it's an album I only have on CD. I really need to get a vinyl copy of that. But so that's the second one. A new release out in the UK just a few days ago, and that's Eddy Current Supression Ring. Right, so those are the new records, and get onto some stuff that I picked up at Leeds Record Fair, and again, it's quite a mix. A lot of sort of 60s and 70s stuff, and I'll finish off with a couple of soundtracks from the film soundtracks from the early 80s, which really good. One in particular I was really pleased to get hold of. Right, this first one, this was I took a bit of a chance on this, and it's a debut, and in fact I think it's the only album by a band called Dada, and it's self-titled, and it's on the Atco label from 1970, and This album, this is Alky Brooks, pre Vinegar Joe, and it's a really interesting album. I mean, it sounds like your standard sort of like late '60s, early '70s rock album in in many places, and I mean you start a first track called Big Dipper, and then they go into the Stones the last time, but it's a really quite strange sort of arrangement of that song, and they kind of really stretch it out a bit. And I love Elkie Brooks's vocals. I think she had such a powerful voice, and I mean you can really hear it on here. So the members of the band, I should tell you. So it's Elkie Brooks on vocals, and then you've got Paul Corder also on vocals, and he is I think one of the main sort of songwriting talents within the band. You've got Jimmy Chambers, vocals and percussion. Pete Gage, who also writes some of the stuff on guitar and bass. Don Shin on keyboards, organ, bass and vibes. Martin Harriman, drums and percussion. Barry Duggan, alto and baritone sax. Malcolm Capewell on tenor sax and flute. And Ernie Lachlan on trumpet and flugelhorn. And as I say, for the most part, this is quite a sort of standard sort of, as I say, early '70s rock album. But it kind of becomes quite sort of quite proggy in parts, and then it kind of meanders into almost like easy listening music from time to time. It's really quite strange. I wouldn't say this is the greatest album I've ever listened to, but certainly it's a record that I'm pleased I took the chance on it, and I'll show you it's on the Atco label, part of the Atlantic company, and so that was that. Now, the next one is a folk album from 1966, and I've been looking for sort of albums by this guy for quite some time now, and I've just about got everything I need now, apart from some of his much later stuff, and it's Bert Jansch. So Bert Jansch, guitarist, folk singer. And he is best known, I suppose, for being a member of Pentangle, and also being part of a duo with John Renbourn, who was also in Pentangle. So you can see this record is called Jack Orion, and it's on the you can see the transatlantic label, on which there's an awful lot of brilliant sort of British sort of folk music was recorded for this label, and so the record itself, you've got the Wagoner's Lad, and John Renbourn plays on this. I think he plays guitar, second guitar on that, and you've got the Wagoner's Lad, and then you've got The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, the Ewan McCall track, and it's only 1 minute 45, and it's an instrumental, and it's been arranged by Bert Jansch, and it sounds so different. That you really have to listen to, appreciate that this is a tune that you're actually listening to. He's really, he's arranged the hell out of it, and it's very different. And then side one finishes with the magnificent sort of Jack Orion, and Pentangle also recorded Jack Orion on their album Cruel Sister, and of course Bert Jansch and John Renbourn are involved in that as well. And I don't know which version I like the best. I think I probably just about prefer the Pentangle version of Jack Orion to the version on this album, but this is an excellent album. So side two, you've got a short track called The Gardener to start with. Then you've got Nottingham Town, which is a bit of a sort of English folk standard, really. Uh, then you've got Henry Martin, and then another folk standard, Blackwater Side, and finishing off with Pretty Polly. So if you're into your sort of English folk revival, then this is possibly one of the essential albums of the folk revival. So that's that. So from the folk revival to a bit of prog rock, and this is early 70s again, 1971. And this is a fairly recent sort of reissue. I think it's like 2022, I think. Anyway, it's by a band called Egg. They're Canterbury sound prog band, and it's Egg, and it's the Polite Fools, which I think was their second album, and it's pretty good. It's quite experimental. It's not your typical sort of Canterbury sound. It's not quite as sort of jazz infused as so much of the Canterbury sound is. But there are three members of the band, and they're all in another band before called Uriel, another Canterbury band, and they were in the band with Steve Hillage, and Steve Hillage went off to university, so the band sort of split up, and then Egg came out of the sort of demise of Uriel. So the people on this, you've got who have you got? You've got Clive Brooks. Now Clive Brooks is a drummer, and I think he was in Groundhogs at some point. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain he was in Groundhogs at some point. And then you've got Dave Stewart, who plays various sort of keyboard, organ, and piano, and a thing called a tone generator as well. And Dave Stewart was also in Hatfield in the North, and I showed Hatfield in the North. I showed their album, The Rotters Club, I think in my last video or the video before last. So Dave Stewart got to mention them. And then you got Mont Campbell, who also appeared on the Hatfield and the North album, but he was in a band called National Health, and Mont plays the bass basically. And this is their, as I say, this is their second album. I think they did about 3 or 4 altogether. And there you go. That's the all the details on the back there, and it's on the reissued on the Tapestry Records label, and Tapestry do quite a lot of sort of reissues of quite rare sort of folk-like albums. So it's quite a good label to have a look at. And so you've got 3 tracks on side 1, and you've got a visit to Newport Hospital, Contra Song, and Boilk. And then on side 2, taken up by a single piece that's appropriately called Long Piece, and it's Long Piece number 3. And this is a nice bit of Canterbury prog. As I say, it's a bit more experimental, not quite as jazzy as the usual sort of Canterbury stuff, but certainly worth a listen. Right, now I'll finish off a couple of soundtrack albums, and coincidentally they're both from films that were released in 1981. And this first one, this is a film that I remember going to see it when it first came out. It's a French film. It's in French, so I was very glad of the subtitles. And I think I saw it at Lancaster University Film Society, but I could be wrong about that, because it's a long time ago, 1981, wasn't it? But anyway, it's this wonderful film, and it's Diva, and as I say, this is the original soundtrack, and it's an absolutely brilliant film. And I'll show you on the back, and the diva in question, she's an American. It's Wilhelmina Wiggins Fernandez, who is the singer here. And I'll tell you a bit about the film from what I remember. So it all revolves around a young postman in Paris, and he drives around central Paris on his little moped delivering the post. But he's absolutely obsessed with this American opera singer, this American diva, and she won't allow anybody to record her performances. And what he does is he sneaks into a recital, and he makes a sort of high quality recording of her singing. And what she's singing is the principal aria from an opera called La Wally. And you know, it's it's only like 3 minutes 30 at the start of this album, but quite honestly, it's worth getting this album just to hear. It's absolutely magnificent piece of singing from a sort of absolutely top of a form soprano. So getting back to the film, so he makes this recording, and then he ends up stealing the dress she was wearing during the performance from her dressing room. And then the film takes a sort of, a kind of a turn, a 90-degree turn, and becomes something else. And what happens is that somebody slips a cassette tape into the bag on his his post bag, and it's a tape that includes all sorts of incriminating information about a prostitution and drug trafficking ring. And unfortunately, the ring is being led by a senior police officer in Paris, and so they get wind that he has this tape, and he becomes a hunted man. And there's a scene where he's been chased. He's on his little moped, riding through the Paris metro, trying to escape these thugs that have been sort of sent to sort him out. And I can remember the main guy. I think he was. I think the character's known as the priest, but he's this enormous guy, this enormous skinhead with dark glasses, this menacing character that's sort of after him. And this film is absolutely brilliant. I love this film, and I've not seen it for a while, but yeah, I would recommend this. And this was in a bargain bin, believe it or not. And it's in absolutely perfect condition. It's on a French label called Melon. There you go. And I would recommend both this soundtrack and the film itself to anybody. Now, the next one, also a film that was released in 1981. It's a West German French co-production, but the film is actually in English, and it's a film I hadn't seen before. I'd never seen this film, and you can see it's called Possession, and I found the film online, and I thought, I'll watch it. And I knew beforehand that maybe that it's quite a disturbing film, and it's a breakup. It's about the breakup of sort of marriage, but it's really horrific. It's a horror film, and the guy who, I think it's Sam Neill, who's the main character, and he's a spy, and he's been behind the Iron Curtain. He comes back, and he realises that his wife's been having an affair, and right near the start of the film, she admits she's having an affair. They meet in a cafe shortly afterwards, and it doesn't end well. And then the next moment, he's fallen into this spiral of drug addiction, heavy drinking, and that she's got all sorts of issues. At one point, she tries to cut her throat with an electric knife. They have a son who is just sort of kind of forgotten about by them. He's been totally neglected by them, and it is absolutely horrific, this film. But what I quite like about it is that it's set in mainly in West Berlin. During that period of the early 80s. Towards the end of the Cold War period, and it's quite nice to just sort of see the landscape and the wall and everything. Anyway, the soundtrack, it's a musical score by Andre. Yes, Andrzej Kosinski, who is Polish, and it's quite a proggy, quite a proggy sort of soundtrack. It's really nice, and it's on the Finders Keepers label, and Finders Keepers do quite a few really nice soundtracks, and they usually sell out quite quickly. So I was really sort of interested to find that one of the stalls at the record fair had, a number of Finders Keepers soundtracks, and they're all still sealed and very reasonably priced. So that's what I picked up at the record fair. It's the new records I've been buying and listening to recently, and so you know I hope you like that. So I've been going on for just over 30 minutes now, so I think it's time to stop. So until next time, I'll see you. So bye bye.